Lukewarm Tea, volume 3 or 4, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, ahoy hoy family, it is your girl T back again. The way my performance anxiety is set up nowadays, it is incredibly hard for me to just get my ish together to sit down and film nowadays. Damn. I was talking to my mom about this just yesterday. Every time I want to get back into creating content on here more consistently, more steadily, since I have a little bit more time now, I just get this creative paralysis. So Ma Duke suggested to just film something light and low pressure because the way my nerves are wiling out right now, this was supposed to be a tea talk right now, but oof, no way. Coincidentally, the topic of the tea talk that I had planned and that will be here eventually digs into this. It has a lot to do with me examining the ways in which YouTube has changed over the past 1 to 2 years and how, at least for me and some of the other creators I know, it's had a very deleterious effect on our ability to create content. So if that sounds interesting to you, be on the lookout. I just gotta go get a quick lobotomy to get my nerves to settle down a bit so I can be back in y'all's feed on the regular. Now listen, I've been planning another lukewarm tea since back when the milk crate challenge was dominating the internet, which was also around the same time that we got the truly bone-chilling news that someone out there is licking Trick Daddy's bussy.
Hello, darkness,
Then again, it's probably best that we don't revisit that unpleasantness, so I cross those off the list for today. Point is, I have a note on my phone where I've been jotting down topics for videos for weeks, and it's just taken me a really long time to be able to put on my game face. Anyway, hi, miss y'all. Let's talk about Nicki Minaj and this vacuum situation. Y'all know how YouTube is. I gotta code this shit. If you don't know, the Met Gala was a couple days ago, and Nicki Minaj had quote that she ain't go because attendees were required to have had the vacuum and she has not had it. Based on her statements, I don't think it's fair to call her anti-vacuum, but I do think it is fair to classify her as amongst the vacuum hesitant. That is not where she loses credibility with me. I'll tell you where she loses credibility with me. Onika went on to add that her Trini cousin's friend, he had did it, he had got the vacuum, and later on, his balls swelled up and he also could not get it up. And evidently, allegedly, apparently, all of this went down a few days before he was supposed to get married, and his fiance called off the wedding, the whole thing. It was a complete disaster. Translation? Homeboy was cheating, caught an STD, and blamed it on the vacuum. Wifey-to-be saw through the bullshit and said, oh no, the f*** we not. But cousin friend is sticking to his story. He's committed to the bit and insisting that it was the vacuum that did it. Weirdly enough, I had seen this story about this Trini man and his balls and his wedding and his side effect from the vacuum. I had seen this floating around as just a general run-of-the-mill internet kiki with no connection to Nicki Minaj whatsoever. So the idea that this man is tangentially connected to Nicki Minaj is a bit of a gag, even though I don't believe it. I think she saw that story floating around on the internet just like the rest of us did a couple of days before and maybe wanted to lend some credibility to this story and her reasons for being vacuum hesitant by saying it was her cousin's friend. Following these things that Nicki Minaj twatted, Joy Reid got on her show and was chastising Nicki Minaj, saying, do better sis, stop spreading misinformation, yada. Nicki Minaj, being Nicki Minaj, of course, clapped back, calling Reid an Uncle Tommyana. I think even the UK's constable of misogynoir, Piers Morgan, inserted himself into this whole mess. So the pile-on continued with the team mandatory vacuums for everyone versus team anti-vacuums for everyone. Lack of complexity that this topic seems to almost always have, unfortunately. Complete with Nicki Minaj's Twitter account being suspended, it might be restored by now, don't know, don't care. Now, if you haven't looked around lately, we are in hell. People are so blinded by the dogma on both sides of the spectrum of this debate that anyone who doesn't conform completely 100% 10 toes down to the views to the party line on one side is immediately ousted as some sort of bad, extreme, stupid person from the other side. I hate that I even have to clarify this or give any sort of disclaimer, but I am by no stretch of the imagination anti-vacuum. My dad and my brother were actually the first two people I knew to get the jabs like very, very early on. They qualified early because of age and asthma respectively. And it was a relief for me to know that they would have that protection early on, which was obviously before we started learning more about breakthrough cases and whatnot, but that's another kettle of fish. But there is no denying that there are a lot of people, and there are a lot of Black people, who are hesitant to get vacuumated and to act as if Black people have no reason to be hesitant, if not outright distrustful of the healthcare industry, because it is an industry, It would be completely disingenuous, and that to me is what's misinformed. People keep talking about Tuskegee this and Tuskegee that, but in my opinion, that's not even the best citation. Since the vacuums first started rolling out 8 or so months ago, the Tuskegee comparisons have abounded. Team vacuum and team bodily autonomy's arguments kind of boil down to
Team Science
versus
Team Remember Tuskegee.
But neither of those track. Neither side seems to have thought about this a whole lot to me. The Tuskegee experiment was about withholding treatment from Black people to let the afflicted suffer and die over several decades, even though treatment was available. What we're dealing with here is not about withholding treatment, it's about mandating something. More importantly, there are plenty of other more apples to apples types of comparisons that we can make if we're going to talk about experimental, ghoulish, straight up evil things done to Black people and other marginalized communities in the name of research and medicine. Forget Tuskegee, a better corollary is MK Ultra and MK Naomi, or the fact that at least 20 emergency rooms in the United States have been using artificial blood, which is experimental technology, for years without patient consent. Or the Atomic Energy Commission, which literally injected Black people with plutonium back in the 1940s, to see what would happen. I won't go on, but I could. There is definitely a lot of stupid, insane bullshit floating around, especially once you start getting into the 5G girlies and whatnot. But I also know that the very same institutions that we are now being told to trust, they perpetrated insane, evil, almost unbelievable bullshit on unsuspecting people for centuries, and they've gotten away with it. So it seems logical to me that there are going to be people who side-eye when you tell them,
except not this time.
We are not gaslighting you. Gee.
The NatFam Book Club read Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington a while back, and that book really lays out, let me tell you, it will explain point by point why Black people have a right to be fearful and distrustful of medical institutions in the United States especially, and it doesn't make them hard-headed or stupid or anti-science. There's a whole ass word for this fear of doctors and medical institutions, iatrophobia. I will link Medical Apartheid on Not Amazon in the D box because everybody should read that book. Now, despite everything I've said up to this point, and despite bringing up historical context that explain why there might be some people who are vacuum hesitant, one of the most vexing aspects of all this is how people on the left, the liberals, the way they always want to shut down a person who even has hesitancy or questions about this pickle we're in and how we're going to work our way through it. The way they shut down anyone who even dares to ask a question is,
believe the science.
This is what they say anytime someone doesn't fall in lockstep with the script that they've decided is the correct one. It's, but science, idiot. And based on that, I'm convinced at this point that these people don't even know what science is. I'm no scientist, but I have heard of them. And they will tell you that the primary function of science is inquiry. Science is about asking questions and seeking truth in the ways we answer these questions. Often, these questions are challenging things long held as absolute truths. So to act as if the science is completely settled and we are not in fact living through a situation that continues to evolve every day and every week, and therefore we don't need any further explanation, examination, any further questioning, that to me is fundamentally anti-science. So it is peculiar to me when the Philip DeFrancos and Jimmy Kimmels of the world say that if you don't get this vacuum, you're stupid and you basically deserve to die. Like, this is what these guys are saying. Not verbatim, but I'm not exaggerating the sentiment. And this is the stance of a lot of people. That's not about science, that's about compliance, which is really, really peculiar because there's also such a thing as acquired immunity. Like, if y'all are so into science, why is that not part of the conversation? We know that one of the main dangers of Shawty Rowe is that she is highly, highly contagious, which means outside of the 4 million plus people who sadly have perished, there are also several millions of people who didn't, who survived, and therefore have developed antibodies. I'll also link some sources for that in the D box. Do your own research, as they say. I don't know. It just strikes me as odd. I don't see how so many people can be drawing these definitive conclusions to the point of condemning people as idiots for wanting more data, more time. Because all of the data that we have are limited by the fact that even though Shawty Rowe feels like she's been ruining our lives for forever, it's been less than 2 years. And anyone who is truly interested in the science and believing the science, wouldn't that mean continued investigation of acquired or natural immunity as well as the vacuum and hoping to even improve the vacuum as we get new Varietals. There have been credible studies that have come out to show that acquired immunity is significant and it's something that we should be considering, which shouldn't be surprising, because science? Deadass, that's junior high school biology. I just think this failure to allow any complexity in the discussions around a complex situation, the immediate condemnation of anyone who dares to question things, it's just making me feel like I'm losing my mind. Like, what is going on? So yeah, I ain't out here trying to be siding with Nicki Minaj like ever, but I think wanting more time for more data, long-term effects of vacuuming versus not vacuuming, I think that's legit. I get where she's coming from and wanting more answers to these questions and more time to see things play out. I don't think that makes you anti-vacuum, let alone anti-science. Just leave out the bit about your cousin's friend's balls next time, sis, because that really damaged your argument. But yeah, as I said, all this came out because she was talking about why she skipped the Met Gala. But one person who did not skip the Met Gala was Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, because of course public servants should endorse events that celebrate empire. As part of the squad, of course, Cortez seized this moment and wore this protest dress, which divided the left instantaneously. Her supporters were commending her for facilitating a spike in people Googling "tax the rich." Cool. Whereas her detractors were pointing out the hypocrisy of the venue and the vessel, which I don't think can be ignored. This is literally a gala. This is one of those moments where I understand what people mean when they say the medium is the message. I don't know. For me, myself personally, I just can't ignore the cognitive dissonance of this protest when there were dozens of people who were arrested outside of the Met Gala for protesting. As is often the case, my feelings are so mixed. Googling "tax the rich" may indeed work out as a way to rabbit hole more people into getting more anti-capitalist education. And who knows, maybe some folks will even become activated from seeing this dress. But the acute result is just Google collecting more of your data for surveillance and profit, and showing you ads during the process off of which they also profit. What I'm saying is the revolution will not be Googled, y'all. Anyway, I guess that's where I'm gonna leave it for this lukewarm tea, because I feel like I've been talking a long time, even though I only talked about like 2 or 3 things. I didn't alleviate any pressure at all today, like my mom had suggested I try to do. Somehow I managed to turn talking about Nicki Minaj into talking about one of the polarizing issues of our time. So here come the unsubbed comments. Good riddance. Have I mentioned we are in hell? Let me get out of here for real. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end of the video. And if you made it this far without deciding that I am a science-hating 3%er barb, shout out to you for having listening comprehension skills. Stay safe, stay dangerous, and never trust anyone with a Morphe code. Bye-bye.
That's some nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now.